let's dive right in to tonight's discussion. Spring practice got underway this week, and there was for only two practices, there was a ton of news that came out this week, Chris. Um, I can't tell you the last time that a spring started where I felt like the news was coming out this fast and this furious. And I want to start right here with this. Jim Knowles had the following statement about one Captain Jack Sawyer. He said Jack Sawyer will be just an end with JT Tuimoloau. He will work on all the fundamentals of being an end. I think that is important for Jack. I feel like he didn't have the improvement or the big jump he could have last year because he got involved with the Jack position stuff and maybe he wasn't as focused as he could have been to make those improvements at the end. Chris, that was a big comment from the defensive coordinator about probably a bad decision that was made about one of the best recruits that we've had from Central Ohio in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, um, yeah, I like Knowles coming out and kind of taking responsibility for it too. Saying, "Hey, this is what I thought was going to be a great idea. Maybe it didn't work out the way I thought it would. You know what? We're going to refocus this guy. We're going to put this guy on the end, and we're going to have those bookend guys that we thought we were getting when we landed both these guys in that class. I think that's going to be tremendous for Ohio State. I think it's going to be kind of scary for a few quarterbacks through the league. When he gets into the groove there, just playing that defensive end position. Um, I also think it was, it just in general, I do think that maybe we expected more out of Jack Sawyer, much like Knowles mentioned, that didn't necessarily come along. And I think that this is going to open up, some space for maybe a either a CJ Hicks or possibly a guy returning from injury like a Mitchell Melton who could slide in there and make an impact.
Absolutely. And you're not the only one who feels this way. Brad Olberding, welcome to the show, Brad. Welcome back. He says, that's great news. I agree. And you mentioned that might make room for this guy. And Ryan Wickerham says, watch out for CJ Hicks. So he's thinking in the same lines that you are, Chris, that this move is possibly going to open up for someone else to slide into that jack position and make an impact that wasn't making an impact before, and possibly creating a spot on the field for somebody. It was disappointing. Now, I say it was disappointing, but yet, do you know who led the team in sacks last year at 4.5?
Jack,
It was Jack.
yeah,
In limited playing time from a position he wasn't comfortable playing, and he still led the team in sacks. Now, everybody knows about JT Tuimoloau and the game he had against Penn State.
sure,
There's going to be a lot of attention be placed on him.
yes,
Do you think that this move not only helps JT, but possibly with JT's popularity, Jack can slide in there as kind of being thought of as the number two on the other side and have a bigger impact than what JT might have statistically because of JT?
absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Eric, I almost would go as far as saying, look out for whoever they do put in that Jack position. Let's look back at, the other side of the ball, but let's look when we had Olave and Wilson. What happened when we had Olave and Wilson? Those two guys didn't lead the team in receiving. It was
No.
JSN who snuck in
Hmm.
there because all the attention was being paid to those guys. You're going to have the very same effect. So not only do I think it's going to benefit both those guys, but I think it's going to benefit either CJ Hicks or like I said, a Mitchell Melton or whoever gets that jack position, because there's going to be so much attention you're going to have to pay there. Not only that, but we got a couple of monsters on the defensive tackle.
Yes, we do.
I'll tell you what, this is the year I truly think we are going to see a much more aggressive Ohio State defense.
Hmm.
And I think this move is just one of those that's going to help create that.
Yeah, you mentioned the jack position with possibly being CJ Hicks or Mitchell Melton. Here's what Jim Knowles had to say about Mitchell Melton. He said, "We started experimenting with him, being Mitchell Melton, in the jack position last year, and he jumped out. Of course, he got injured then, Chris, after that. I
Right.
want to see him back there, recovered and completely healthy." Jim Knowles basically said, Chris, I want to see him in that spot.
Yeah.
Like he's got a plan for him. And that could possibly lead to some really good things at that position. And the other thing that came out in that press conference, Chris, was he said we only played the jack position maybe around 30% of the snaps,
Right.
and he played it upwards of 80% when he was at Oklahoma State. What do you think about that?
Well, and that begs the question: are we going to see it more, or do we maybe see more? And I've heard this mentioned, the possibility of playing more traditional 4-3 at times. Because we have such a talented linebacking crew. You've got to find a way to get not only Melton, but you got to find a way to get CJ Hicks snaps. The kid is too talented not to get him the snaps. And obviously, you're not going to go around. Cody Simon, another guy, very
Hmm.
talented, needs to get his snaps. And you're not going to take a whole ton of snaps away from Steele or from Tommy Two Thumbs, because look at what they've done when they're in there. So I think that this is going to be a tremendous opportunity. I think it's going to improve the depth of the defense as well. Even though we're not necessarily adding a bunch of players, but being able to move guys around and create some depth that way as well. I am very excited for this. But I'll tell you something else that makes me, I mentioned the more aggressive defense. I don't know if you've heard about it as much, but Tim Walton's really pushing the defensive backs to become more aggressive as well. I've heard that he has got them, uh, you know, checking receivers more at the line. So we're going to start seeing more of that physical bump and run type corner versus the 5 yard, 10 yard cushion, keep everything in front of you type guy that we've seen in the past.
Well, if that's the case, then we better make sure that we have a safety over top.
No, no
Um,
more zero safety.
yeah, you can't play zero safety if you're going to play that close to the line of scrimmage with your cornerbacks, which means they must feel pretty comfortable with someone that who they've got back there as being kind of the eraser in case something bad happens there.
Lorenzo Styles.
You think so? I think he's
I'm,
going to be. I do
I'm
not
telling you,
think
that
he's
kid's
back there in the free. I think he's more of a strong.
he is definitely more of a strong, I think, by nature. Um, but you know what? I think they've got the confidence in Lathan. I think that we've got, of course, the transfer kid that came in from Syracuse, who I think is, uh, you know, he showed himself to be a beast up there at Syracuse. Now, does it translate to the Big Ten level? We're going to find out. But I think that this may be one of the most talented defenses we've seen in a while, and I think
Oh,
that
I
they're going to
agree.
become much more aggressive because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it now for a while that the success of the season is going to hinge, in my opinion, on the improvement of the defense on the year two under Jim Knowles. Speaking of that defense and speaking about those defensive backs, Ryan Day said this about Denzel Burke. Denzel has had a really good 8 weeks and had a really good first day today. I think that's been great. So we've been hearing buzz about Denzel Burke returning to his freshman All American form from 2021. He had somewhat of a sophomore slump in 2022 that has been well documented. He was oft injured, but he still played. He tried a number change that did nothing. Hopefully he's getting coached up a little bit, and I think maybe some of that confidence will come with maybe some aggression, more aggressive play.
Yeah, and Eric, I'll tell you, you mentioned it, but oft injured. We saw so much of that last year. I think that this Ohio State team last year, and again, we've speculated about it, the physical nature of the practices may have been somewhat different than what they were used to. Um, and I think a lot of guys got banged up, and I think that contributes a lot. I mean, obviously the injury situation with Travion's been well documented. You know, supposedly we've got everything ironed out. Everybody's happy. We've all hugged it out, and we're ready to move forward. Uh, but we lost Travion, we lost Pryor, we lost obviously Melton last year. JSN, we tried to push him back too soon. Denzel was out there playing injured and probably shouldn't have been at times. I think that a big part of the success of this defense is not only going to be, everybody being healthy, but everybody staying healthy and not trying to push too hard too fast. Because I think that got us into a lot of trouble last season.
Yeah, it did, and um, it's hard. It's hard to put people in positions of significance who, number one, don't have a lot of experience, and number two, um, you don't have the full confidence in.
Yeah.
And so that I think is a big part of what this spring is for this defense, Chris,
Yes, it
is
is.
getting those reps, getting that experience, gaining that confidence from some of these guys so that if and when injuries come, and they will come, the next guy who steps in is ready to go. You know my feelings on this. I'm not going to hold back. I cannot stand the next
Next
man
man
up.
up.
I
Yeah.
hate that because the next guy up might not be nearly as good as the guy who just got hurt. So don't give me that crap. Next man up. If the next man up is 2 or 3 steps behind the guy who just got hurt, you're going to feel it. Bryson Shaw, anybody?
Oh wow, that's you
And
had to go
I
there, didn't you?
I just heard Aaron from Texas give me a heck yeah from Texas on that one. Uh, Speaking
Yeah,
of Aaron, I got that question last week. We will address that here in just a little bit, so hang around for that. But let's continue our discussion here, Chris.
yeah,
We need to flip the script from defense to offense here. Let's talk about offense here for just a minute, if that's okay.
sure.
The quarterback battle. It sounds like to me Kyle McCord is ahead in this thing.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I think it's amazing that a guy who hasn't even been named the starter yet is a 20-1 odds-on favorite to win the
The
Heisman
Heisman,
Trophy.
right?
That's just a beautiful thing for the gambler in me right there. And I'll tell you what, I think right now you jump on it because I think once he's named the starter, that cuts in half at least. And another thing about that is, I'm sure you heard Ryan Day say it. We don't need Superman out there. We need somebody who's going to do the routine things
Routine, baby.
routinely. That is the guy who's going to win it. And I'll tell you, I think that while I think Devin Brown may have a little more of that spectacular playmaker in him, I think that Kyle McCord is the guy who can go out there and be more consistent for you and do, as Ryan Day said, the routine things routinely. So I feel that yeah, I'm with you. I think that Kyle McCord is probably leading this thing, and I think obviously Ryan Day is not going to tell us anything, but I think it's Kyle's job to lose. I really do.
I do as well. I mean, that one more year on campus, all those extra reps, learning the playbook, the pre chemistry he already had with
Yes,
the very best player on your team. Okay.
best player in college football. I'm going to say it right now, Eric. This guy's the best player in college football.
And I haven't seen the Heisman odds. Is his odds even higher? I wouldn't doubt it.
It wouldn't surprise me one bit. I just caught the quarterback odds today. I haven't caught the whole updated leaderboard on that, but you know what? He's got to be up there. He
Yeah.
has to be. But we're talking about the offensive side of the ball. We're talking a little bit about the receiver room. Hey, have you heard the buzz surrounding a young freshman receiver by the
Oh,
name of Noah
Noah
Rogers?
Rogers.
He
There's a
is
lot of
impressing,
buzz, man. A
and
lot of buzz.
Heartline is loving on this guy right now. I mean that is amazing to me. Not only that, but hearing some good things coming out about Jelani Thurman as well. So there's a lot of excitement about some young offensive talent there. But yeah, Noah Rogers, this guy, everything I've heard says this guy is going to find some way to get on the field at least a little bit this season.
All right. It's time for Eric and Chris to make a bet. First freshman to lose his black stripe. I will let you choose one. I get to pick the field. If I win, I get a free box of what's left over from the Girl Scout cookies.
Fair
If
enough.
you win, I'll give you $5. I'll give you $10 for one box of Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, all right.
There we go. So I'll let you pick the player who will be the first freshman to lose his black stripe. If you guess right, $10 coming your way. I get one box of Girl Scout cookies. If I get the field, I get the field and I get a free box. Who you going with?
Man, that's tough. Gut instinct makes me want to take somebody who's not even in camp yet.
Ooh,
But
that's probably not wise.
that's not a good choice. So I'm gonna go with Noah Rogers. I
I
think
figured
this
you would.
kid. I think that the way Heartline is raving about this kid, uh, I think that he has not only the physical tools on the field. I think he's probably got the football IQ and the personality to be a impact player on the team this season. Whether it's on special teams, whether it's getting some time at receiver, whether it's mop up duty or working his way in, I think this kid is probably the odds-on favorite.
All right, let's stay on offense, and we go from a freshman to someone who I think is 24 years old or something like that. Xavier Johnson,
I love this
former
kid.
former walk on. Uh, Man, the kid had an amazing game in the Peach Bowl. This is from newly crowned offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach Brian Hartline. He says Xavier's awesome. The growth he has had over the past 12 to 18 months has been awesome. He is a true offensive weapon, from his ability to be an elite receiver to going into the backfield and carrying the ball. Um, it sounds like Hartline is really, really high on Mr. Xavier Johnson. I think this kid's going to get more playing time, and hear me out, Chris. I think he might have a better chance of being the third string wide receiver over Julian Fleming.
I'm not so sure you're wrong.
No?
I'm not so sure you're wrong. This kid, I think that he has shown great growth. He's shown the willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team win. And he's such a dynamic weapon. You can do so many things with this kid. I wouldn't be surprised to see the kid take a snap every now and then. Um, but
Right?
yeah, maybe he'll line up in the defensive backfield from time to time. Who knows? This guy's going to do whatever it takes to get his playing time. I could see him sliding in there at the number 3, mainly because he's proven his not only his worth as far as what he can do, but his durability. There is a consistency there that shows me that, and I place a lot of credence in what Brian Hartline says. This is a guy that's done nothing since he got there but pump out first round draft picks. So if he's willing to make that statement, maybe he's willing to make a commitment to Xavier Johnson and say, "Hey, you may not be a first round pick, but I'm going to get you into the top 3." Yeah,
You
who
know,
knows?
I mean, his versatility
Yeah,
is what makes him very valuable. You saw that. I mean,
yeah.
when we had no running backs left, dude was
He
running
was
the
a pretty good
football.
running back.
Yeah. I mean, and and right now you want to talk about a room that's loaded. That running back room is all of a sudden loaded, especially when you throw the fact that if what happens last year happens again, and you need a Xavier Johnson, he can do it.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got two bona fide NFL draft pick running backs. You have one coming off of injury. You had a freshman last year who flashed. You had a linebacker who went back to a running back who looked pretty good in the Michigan game, and then you had
beast.
Xavier Johnson. I mean, that is a loaded room, Chris. Absolutely
It
loaded.
it really is, and Yeah, obviously, Eric, with the way things are in college football now, I think the odds of us having all of those guys at the start of the season is probably a long shot, to say the least.
Yes, it probably
Um,
is.
and I kind of feel the same way about the receiver room, and that's why I think that Xavier Johnson is so important.
Yes.